Hi, I'm Doug Whitaker from Cloud Design Solutions. Thanks for joining today. One of the most common questions we get from our clients is, why would I do something different? I already have a PBX, I already have a contact center, they're working. Why would I move to a cloud-based application? And so we thought we'd spend 10 minutes today just talking about the why cloud, the benefits, the value, the considerations. We hope you enjoyed today's session. We're going to call today's session a Cloud Bite. Now, as I was sharing the slides, I did switch to a wireless poly headset. I like using headsets when I'm on the phone or when I'm in a video meeting, just like we are right now. It's using a speakerphone before. Gives you an idea of the difference in the audio quality between the two applications. Now, when you do move over to cloud-based communications, now you're going to have a choice. You can use a physical phone just like you do today on your PBX, or you can use a desktop application or even a mobile application right on your mobile device. So you're going to have some choices around that. But let's go back and take a look at why does cloud communications deliver value? Now, first, a little bit about Cloud Design Solutions. We do act as your communication advisor for that transition over to cloud communications. We help you identify your needs. We identify what are the solutions that are going to fit with those needs, and then help you negotiate the best pricing around that. We have decades of experience in the industry. I personally have had leadership positions with companies like RingCentral, Aspect Software, and Avaya, and that includes global organization leadership and a go-to-market focus for product management. Now, what are the benefits that you get? Well, let's just take a look at some studies that are out there from some analysts. First of all, Metrigy found that you can have a 13.7% increase in productivity by moving over to cloud. They also found a 25.2% reduction in total cost of ownership compared to a premise application. They also found that you have better engaged staff, which equals happy customers. In fact, their study found a 22% lift in customer satisfaction by using cloud communications. And finally, Deloitte Digital found that the cost per contact is lower when you're using cloud communications. They found it was about a 10% lower cost per contact. You might ask, why would this be? Well, number one, it includes a whole bunch of applications all in one, makes your employees more productive, and at the same time, it's integrated with other applications out there, whether it's Google Docs, whether it's Microsoft Office, even your CRM system. It automatically brings up the record when a customer calls. It gives you the ability to making calls right out of those applications, includes phone, video, text messaging, faxing, etc., right within that single application. Now, when we look at the overall market, we find that 70% of companies are actually using cloud communications, and usually it's video meetings, an application like this, but only 30% of those businesses have transitioned over to cloud phone. The market is growing between 10 and 25% per year. This year will be about a $35 billion market, but that's expected to grow up to about $100 billion by 2030. There are actually more than 300 million users of Microsoft Teams today, but less than 5% of those are using Teams Phone. You have a whole bunch of choices in what you can do. This is something that makes sense for businesses. More and more customers are leveraging cloud communications moving forward. We're going to go over why that is. It's because it makes business sense. If you take a look at the illustration to the right, you have her carrying all those boxes as she's trying to balance. That includes the software for PBX and contact center, it includes hardware. That's not just phones, it's servers, it's appliances. It includes carrier services. It includes your data center, those servers, everything it takes to run the data center, even the people in the data center, the overhead costs associated with that. Notice that she's dropped the compliance, and that's because when you have a premise application, it's very difficult to stay up with compliance, and that's because there's always threats that are out there. So what cloud lets you do, it lets you reduce things like labor. You don't have to spend the same amount of time on application management, administration. You're not even doing the upgrades. It lets you reduce your overall equipment, and therefore you have a reduction in equipment depreciation. The only equipment you really have in a cloud scenario is maybe you have phones. And that it goes back to infrastructure and equipment refresh. Because I don't have the hardware, I don't need to replace it every 2, 3, 4 years because the new software needs more powerful equipment. It also is a reduction in bandwidth consumption and costs. It's using over-the-top internet, so I don't need the same sort of resources in there to run my operations. And then looking at that data center, I don't need energy, cooling, leasing, insurance, management, personnel, even vendor management, because there's only one vendor to manage. And finally, that relates to the compliance-related expenses that are out there. That's the responsibility of that one vendor. They're always staying up to date on top of all those threats that are out there. And that means that there's a reduction in complexity for you. It's much easier to use the applications. The applications are unified and designed better so that you're able to leverage more of them, and it's just part of your daily workflow. So when you look at the financial analysis of cloud versus legacy premise, I'm going to remind you that cloud includes things like the hardware, meaning the servers, the appliances. It includes things like support. It's included in the subscription. You don't have to go through upgrades. That's included in the subscription. You don't have to spend money on the upgrade services, and you don't need any managed services. They're taking care of everything. And finally, it reduces indirect expenses, the real estate, the back office personnel, that vendor management I spoke to before. And so when you look at a 5-year total cost of ownership of cloud versus premise, you're going to find that cloud is consistently less expensive than premise. And in fact, with premise, because you have to make that upfront cost, in this scenario, which is 100 users of UC and contact center, you have 40% of the total in year one. The cloud scenario is only 25%. That's actually a little bit higher than in most scenarios. And premise is usually a little bit higher, anywhere up to that 70%. Meanwhile, in year 4 with premise, you need to go through that upgrade. It might be year 2, year 3, year 4. It depends on the software that's out there. But you might have to do that. You have the services associated with it, and then you need hardware that's going to support that new version. So when you take a look at the overall cost of ownership, you find that premise is consistently higher than cloud. In fact, in this scenario, it's about a 21% savings over the 5 years. And that means that there's a risk shift. Under the premise scenario, the risk is on the consumer. All right, you've bought the equipment, you've sunk all those costs, you need to make it work, you need to get your value. Meanwhile, with cloud, the risk shifts over to the provider. And that's because you have a choice now. You can keep using it or you can switch to a different application out there. They need to make sure that you're getting value around it. So cloud not only allows you to have a quicker rollout, it has a limited expense in that rollout, but the provider needs to continuously make sure that you're successful using their product to eliminate the possibility of you churning to another application. And that sets new expectations. Number one, an accelerated time to value. You're using it quicker, you're getting value quicker. It's a consumption-driven spend, so you're only paying for what you're using. That means that during the seasonal holidays, you can burst up if you need to and then come back down. You have flexibility in what you're using and how you're using it. And then finally, you're leveraging the value by trying it, seeing what makes a difference, and then driving adoption internally. That's realizing a business impact. It's also switching over to an OpEx financial model, which gives you flexibility. You don't have that large upfront spend, so you can use your funding differently. It's a pay-as-you-go model, which gives you more flexibility with the cash flow. You're preserving that capital, spreading it over time. It gives you the ability to scale up over time. You don't need to purchase something now for what you might use in 3 or 5 years. It's also giving you tax benefits. It's fully deductible as an operating expense in the year that it's incurred. With, compared to CapEx, which is a premise application where you have to write off the depreciation. And then finally, it's that risk shift. You're reducing your overall risk because you're avoiding the risk of the obsolescence of the product and underutilizing the product. So what are our next steps? Well, first of all, engage with Cloud Design Solutions. Let's take a look at what you're doing. Let's do the assessment, identify where we think we're going to have an impact, and then take a look at what are the providers that are going to be able to satisfy your needs. We have partnerships with the industry leaders, companies like Zoom, RingCentral, Genesys, 8x8, Five9, and NICE. So you have some choices in what you're doing. We're able to align the best solution that's going to fit your needs. And what that's going to get you is savings over time. And that's because cloud makes sense. It's a unified solution. It's one thing that does everything. It's a mission critical. In fact, the providers are financially responsible for keeping it up and running. And they're also responsible for making it secure and compliant. And then finally, it's probably less expensive compared to what you're spending today. I want to thank you for your time. Cloud Design Solutions is here to help. So Notice the QR code in the lower right-hand corner. Please scan that and engage with Cloud Design Solutions. Thank you and have a wonderful day.